Hello, 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 and welcome to Updog Sports Talk. My name is Matt Miller. Joining me today is Justin McGovern. Justin, what is up, dude?
Well, Matt, I'm excited to talk about some college football today. We got to do like a state of the union here at the NFL last week. Now, this week it's time to look at college football. How are things standing right now? How are things looking? What teams suck? What teams are good? Should be a lot of fun. Obviously, we're going to start out here with the group of five, kind of give the little guys some love a little bit. Um,
Gotta represent
yeah,
everyone.
yeah, I know. We gotta give all these teams publicity here. And then on to Notre Dame, BYU, kind of like independents, how they look. Then we'll talk about the Pac-12, the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10, and the SEC. So to get started here, it's time we talk about the group of five and independents here. So we can start out here with the MAC. Matt, looking back, does anyone have any idea who the hell is going to win this conference?
No, but I can say that BG has a fantastic quarterback. He's up there in terms of yardage and recognition right now. And then
Yeah.
I actually saw on their Facebook page that they have someone else ranked like top 10, I think on defense and tackles or something like that. So they got some good things going. So but it's literally anybody's game.
Oh yeah.
They all are like middle of the road. Sometimes they're really good and sometimes they're really bad. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's Maction maybe.
I know. Yeah, it's an interesting race to follow. There's really no separation. I mean, really, probably. I mean, there were some wins over Power Five teams. Eastern Michigan beat Arizona State, got Herm Edwards fired. BG beat Marshall. Not a whole lot happened though. Like perhaps the most notable thing was the fact that Kent State led Oklahoma for most of a half, and then gave Georgia their toughest test in a while. That was a little bit weird. So Kent State
Yeah.
might be a team that could blow through this conference if they keep that up.
Maybe
But
they
moving
just got
on
lucky
here,
in a trap game.
yeah, it could be, maybe Georgia was looking ahead to Missouri.
Hey,
um. Anyway, so Conference USA, probably the most notable thing that happened here was Mid Ten State just absolutely whooped Miami down in Miami. So that was a huge surprise. But now, obviously, entering conference play, Mid Ten State needs to be able to keep that up. Overall, it's been a weak year for Group of Fives. There's not really a whole lot of good contenders, even for New Year's Six bowls, and
yeah, I was
a lot of
hoping
the big
for I was actually hoping for Charlotte to do a little bit better and get their name out there, but
Charlotte has absolutely stunk this year. I think
they're terrible, dude.
they lost by 20 to William and Mary. They lost by 20 to two people. Um, but yeah, like they struggled, and yeah. The big thing is though, a lot of these teams just have a hard time coming off a big win and following up the next week. So Mid Ten State has a key conference game against UTSA this week, and all of a sudden now, they might be struggling to come up for that one. UAB is another contender there, and we'll see about the rest. Maybe Florida Atlantic could surprise. They gave Purdue a tough time. So, moving on to the Mountain West, this conference had made a living the past few years upsetting Pac-12 teams. This year, they took almost like I don't even think they took advantage of any of those opportunities this year. I don't think they beat anyone in the Pac-12. Mountain West overall is down this year. It's not looking good. Obviously, when your flagship program Boise State is, they're trying to stop each other from tackling players, like you can see there. It's a
Well, they
mess. They
also
fired
fired
their
their
offensive
offensive
coordinator.
coordinator already. They're losing their
Yeah,
quarterback to either BYU or Utah State, which is really funny because they actually play this week. So look to him to be at that game in the stands watching. So we'll see.
yeah,
But yeah,
and
it
I mean it's literally
it's
their
not the
worst
conference it used to
offense.
be.
Yeah,
They used to have like two or three solid teams, maybe right outside the top 25. And like you said, just would kind of eat at some wins out of the Pac-12, but man,
yeah.
they're struggling right now.
Yeah, and then they also feature two of the worst teams in college football. Colorado State lost by 30 to a FCS team. Hawaii, obviously, Todd Graham completely destroyed everything there, and everyone transferred out. So Timmy Chang's got a massive rebuilding job there. So like Colorado State and Hawaii play in a few weeks, and I'm excited for how bad of a game that is because those are probably two of the worst teams in college football this year. But
Hey,
for
that
contenders,
Air Force though.
yeah, Air Force is looking good. They got upset by Wyoming, so now the big thing is they have
But
a 2-game
Wyoming is pretty
deficit.
good.
Yeah. Other than Wyoming getting blown out by Illinois in the opener, they've looked pretty good though. So yeah, Air Force, Wyoming look like contenders. UNLV, a bit of a surprise team. They're 3-1. They have not made it to a bowl game in a while. This could be the year they finally break that streak.
Didn't they go winless last year?
I think so.
I think it was like last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah,
it was recent.
I think it was last year. They went winless. So already off to a 3-1 start. Fantastic start for them. And then the Sun Belt. How about the Sun Belt and all these surprise victories they pulled this year? Appalachian State beat Texas A&M. Marshall beat Notre Dame. Georgia Southern beat Nebraska. I mean, that was some notable wins they pulled off. South Alabama came within a completely terrible fake field goal beating UCLA. I mean, this conference is looking pretty good, and Coastal Carolina and James Madison are still undefeated.
Dude, James Madison actually looks legit.
James Madison has not given up 100 yards rushing this year.
Like,
Appalachian State ran for.
Aren't they even not like? I'm pretty sure they're not bowl eligible because this is their first year, isn't it?
Yeah, this is their first year, so they're not eligible for anything. But I mean, they could just run through everybody and go undefeated.
Playing for pride. It's like 2012 Ohio State. They're playing for pride.
Yeah, like Appalachian State ran for almost 200 yards on like a loaded Texas A&M defense, a defense loaded with 5 stars, and James Madison held the same team to 60 yards rushing. That is ridiculous. And this is a team that's just getting up to the FBS for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Coastal Carolina though might be their best hope for a New Year's Six bid. But mentioning New Year's Six bids, how about we talk about the American? Because this conference has obviously produced the New Year's Six team for quite the past several years. And Cincinnati seems to be leading the pack again, Matt. As our resident Bearcat fan, dive in.
Yeah, I mean, like they're struggling because they're like Notre Dame. They lost a lot of people to the draft, graduation, whatever. So they lost a lot. Both teams have lost a lot of key players. For UC, this past week, they seem to have kind of figured it out. Ben Bryant was with them a few years ago. So he understands the system. He was on the same team as Evan Prater back then. But he's just he finally had that game that you knew that he could do. So UC's defense still looks pretty strong. And their only loss is to a very good Arkansas team.
Yeah, and I mean, mentioning that Arkansas loss, honestly, that loss was a game where, like, I mean, they were in it till the end, and really what cost them in that game was a ton of mistakes. Like, pretty much what they showed in that game was they were still a team that had the talent, but replacing all those starters is just kind of like figuring it out as the year goes on, avoiding mistakes. As long as they can do that the rest of the way forward here, obviously Indiana, that game was a huge step in that direction. They should be the favorite to win the American. Houston, a little bit of a disappointment.
An undefeated Indiana at that. Like, this isn't Indiana of years past. This isn't the Nate Sudfeld Indiana. This Indiana team, like, had they not played UC, I figured they'd go a couple more games with a win.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, so that was a good team that UC just blew out this past weekend. And so I mean, Houston, bit of a disappointment.
Houston, they surprised me because I had them even as favorites over UC in the division and or in the conference, and they lost a lot of key starters, but they're starting to fight on the sidelines with each other. So it's like that there's something going on.
And Dana Holgerson's just showing up to press conference saying, "I can't coach these kids." Like, he is just, I don't know, they're just losing it so far. And honestly, like, they had an experienced team. I did not expect them to struggle this much.
Yeah, and I thought SMU was going to be a little bit better too. I actually thought they had a chance against TCU, but they proved me wrong.
Honestly, though, like, I wouldn't blame them too much because I mean SMU lost a close game to what actually could be a pretty decent Maryland team. And then they lost close to what could be a good TCU team. So, I mean, they've
Yeah.
hung in there. Obviously, TCU did kind of like have a 20-7 lead, but SMU fought back. So SMU looks pretty solid. UCF has been a disappointment, though.
Yeah.
I thought with John Rice Plumlee, a fast quarterback who can't throw the ball well, he was a perfect fit for Gus Bus's system, and it really hasn't produced the results that we expected so far. UCF kind of hasn't looked great, and then East Carolina looked promising in the week after
Isn't
almost beating
UCF
NC
going
State.
to Big 12 next year?
Yeah. So far, we've talked about the
Doesn't
3 new
bode
Big
well.
12 teams. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, East
We've
Carolina
probably
looked
spent
promising.
we probably spent a lot of time talking about the American more so than a lot of people would like. So since they're a group of 5, we could just move on. Let's see what we
Yeah.
got next, Justin.
Well, we talk about the independents real quick here. Notre Dame, Matt, I'll let you take it away. Obviously, not the start that was expected, but maybe they're
No,
turning
but
it
like I was saying with UC, they lost a lot of starters. So like when they faced Ohio State, they did a lot better than everyone thought. Their defense is solid, but the offense is super inconsistent. So if they can figure out their quarterback game, the running game doesn't seem to be much of an issue. They have 2 running
Yeah.
backs that can just take the ball all over the field, but they need to be able to get that pass game going. And right now they don't have their the receivers, they lost their starter for the year. For the Ohio State game, one guy was hurt. So they've been pretty short staffed on the
Yeah. Notre
receiving
Dame
end, but
is uncharacteristically not deep at receiver this year, and definitely we've seen
plus
that be an issue at times.
new coach, new system, new staff, except for Tommy Reese and I guess Marcus Freeman, but he's in a different role. But it's like there's so many things that changed. I expected 2 or 3 losses from this team this year. Still kind of in the top 25, kind of like beating some good teams, kind of falling behind on some of the smaller teams. I didn't expect Marshall to beat them, but
Yeah.
I also didn't have high expectations for them this year just because of so many different changes. But
Yeah.
they also lost their original starting quarterback for the season. So like they're just dealing with it on the offensive line. They lost their starting center for the season, and they were out of tackle past couple games. So if they can start getting some people back or having some of these guys get experience, so I think they can take off. But my question is, Tommy Reese, is he a good offensive coordinator, or is he just there because he wore the Notre Dame jersey? I want to figure that
We'll
out.
we'll find out. It definitely feels like the jury's out, and definitely that's kind of what I expected. Like I figured with a new coach and staff and stuff, this year was going to be a learning experience a little bit. They probably were going to have a couple losses here and there. I thought they would lose an upset loss. I didn't think it was going to be the Marshall, but I did think that they might lose an upset. But maybe later in the year here, maybe they could turn around and pull an upset in return once they figure some things out.
Yeah, I mean, I
I do
love
know.
Marcus Freeman. I hope he's around a long time. But in order to do that, you got to win, especially at Notre Dame. They hold themselves, even despite the lack of success, they hold themselves to the same high standard as Alabama and Ohio State. So they need to get back to living up to that standard that they're trying to set. And
Yeah.
with Brian Kelly, they just weren't there. And then now that Freeman's there, they just got to get the offense rolling, and then they'll be fine.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean this is a learning experience.
Mhm.
Talk about BYU here quick. Obviously BYU battling in a loaded
They're pretty
schedule.
good.
They pulled off a good win over Baylor. Didn't quite follow up the next week that well. They got absolutely torched by the good version of Bo Nix in Oregon. More on them in a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, BYU looks like they're in for a solid year. I think the Oregon loss may have cost them a chance at the New Year's Six Bowl though.
Probably. Depends on how Oregon finishes the year, but yeah,
And then
they got Utah State probably after we or before we post this show. And then they got Notre Dame the following week. So That's going to be an interesting one to watch.
Notre Dame versus BYU, battle for the best seed independence.
Yeah.
And then real quick, Connecticut has Jim Mora Jr. as their head coach now. The guy who allegedly told Najee Harris who killed Tupac. They're at a point this year where they're running out of running backs so much that a converted 300-pound defensive lineman that played running back in high school might be playing running back for them this week. So
I
look out
really
for that.
hope that man gets like 800 yards rushing.
I know it'll be so awesome if he just all of a sudden.
This is gonna be either epic or it's gonna be like an epic fail, and it's just gonna be gruesome to watch. So either way, I think my eyes will be on that game if it's on a channel that I have.
Yeah, I think they're playing Fresno State and CBS Sports Network or something like that. So
I think I got that channel, so we'll figure it out.
But moving on here into the
Yeah.
Power Five now. Up next here, we got the Pac-12. This conference has actually stepped it up quite a bit this year.
Yeah, dude.
Now, did not start out well. In week one, Oregon got just demolished, run off the field by Georgia. Utah lost at Florida, which was a game the conference really couldn't afford reputation-wise. But ever since then, not bad. Not bad.
Washington Have they stepped up their game? Like, are they back?
Yeah. I mean, it
looks
seemed
like they were the ugly stepchild of Power Six, and I think they're back. I think as a conference, like you said, Oregon State, Lincoln Riley's got USC being back to USC, and if they can win a championship, I'd have more meaning to that. But but yeah, they got some good programs, but they're gonna need a little bit of help with this conference realignment. So
yeah. But I mean, this is a good start. You know, both the Washington schools picked up big wins over Big Ten teams. That was a big deal. There really was a lack of embarrassing losses, which is a positive change because you know in the past that's been what this conference is specialized in. You know, and still like they got a lot of teams that are up there. You know, they have 4 top 15 teams, which I feel like last year they're struggling to even have one. You know, obviously, like you mentioned, USC looks very good. You know, they were tested against Oregon State, but they found a way to win. And this Oregon State team looks good. Oregon has looked better ever since losing to Georgia. Washington looks very good. Last year, like Washington was a team that literally looked like they struggled to get a yard. And now this year they're just throwing the ball all over the place. And then Utah's improved ever since the season opening loss. And you know, when Notre Dame struggled to Cal, I think I'm starting to realize that you know Cal might actually be a decent team this year.
Yeah, I mean, it was a scary game. In some Cal's fans' eyes, it was a controversial ending. But yeah, I'm glad that Notre Dame walked away with that win. But Cal does look legit. My beef is actually with Arizona State. Firing Herm Edwards the way they fired him, and then also had staff members giving secrets out to the opposing teams to kind of force Herm Edwards out. I got beef with that. So Arizona State, you just made my shit list.
That was an absolute tire fire there at the end. And I think they're ready for just
I think Herm deserves a little bit more respect than firing him in the end zone after a loss, regardless of how bad the loss is. I think he deserves a little bit more respect than firing him in the end zone and then come to find out that his staffers were releasing information to make sure that they lose so he gets fired.
Now, one thing that is interesting here, I do think they did deny that he was fired at that point. However, they did not deny the fact that someone was giving out information, so that was interesting.
Yeah, maybe it was the AD. Maybe it was an inside job from the top. So,
and still hoping that Colorado will get a win this year. It may happen against Arizona State. That's their best shot.
Well, and our friend of the show, Derek Markle, shout out. He'll get his graphics out there. He'll get some of the recruits in, and Colorado's going to turn itself around.
Yeah, it's going to take some time, but they'll get there. And then UCLA at Michigan, you know, bailed on them this year. They were supposed to play Michigan. Michigan bailed on them. So As a result, UCLA's non-conference schedule is absolutely terrible this year. They're currently 4-0, but we don't even know what to expect out of them yet.
They had a smaller attendance at the last few games than a small town in rural Ohio. Like that, I'm pretty sure their attendance was like maybe 2,000 people. Like it was atrocious. That's just embarrassing. Like if you're a UCLA fan, just go to the stadium.
Yeah, no, like
It's an easy win.
Yeah, I mean, you get to see your team win big at least.
Unless nobody likes UCLA, in which case should they have a football team? But that's a discussion for a later date.
Yeah, I know. All I know is we definitely won't see. And by the way, Troy Aikman's trying to get rivalries going here. You know, former UCLA quarterback taking shots at Indiana, so clearly he's trying to get that UCLA Indiana rivalry going. So
that's going to be a great one.
Yeah, no, hey, great one with very little fans in the stands.
Yeah,
I both home and away for each of them.
What conference do we have next?
Yeah, on to the ACC. And I think we have a more intriguing conference race than we're used to here. You know, Clemson looks like they're getting closer to being back to being Clemson. DJ Uyunglele actually stepped up and had a really good game, so it's starting to look like he's got some confidence again. Yeah, playing to his potential. Clemson's defense is actually the question mark here, especially in pass coverage. But Wake Forest lost to Clemson. Wake is not out of it though. Sam Hartman,
but it was really close.
Yeah, I
mean, that was a hell of a game. Yeah,
that was a great game. And then obviously we got NC State now in contention here. The Wolfpack, hanging in there. But they might be playing Clemson in a hurricane this weekend. We'll see how that goes.
They will not play in a hurricane.
I mean, like
if the Bucks move stadiums, then they're moving the game or postponing.
The thing is, though, this game's not an actual hurricane. They're in the remains of the hurricane. Like, you actually are familiar with this because Notre Dame, I think, played both Clemson and NC State in games in hurricanes like that, where it's just
torrential. And I'm pretty sure
the absolute slop fest.
Yeah, I bet that Clemson one was a scary one. Because that was just an ugly game all around. Yeah. I don't want to talk about that one, but I do like Wake. I love Dave Clawson, being former BG coach. Loved what he did at BG, and then followed him to Wake Forest, and he's building that program up. I like to see what they're doing there, and maybe Wake Forest can go from like an old school basketball school to now a football school.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Wake Forest did win this division last year without being Clemson, so they can do it again. Florida State, are they back?
Yeah, is Travis still quarterback, right? You didn't
get hurt Jordan Travis is.
I can't keep up with his injuries, but
he briefly got hurt against Louisville, came back, torched Boston College.
Yeah, dude, he's good. I like his true freshman year, he balled out against Notre Dame, and ever since then, I'm like, this dude's better than what the media is saying. And Florida State, I don't think is going to be fully back. I think if they go up against Clemson or Wake, they're getting. I think they made it a little bit more interesting, but man, Miami is terrible.
Yeah,
they're just bad.
Honestly, like everyone kind of looked at them. They're like, "Oh, they have a new coach. They have a good quarterback. Let's rank them in the top 15 without looking at anything else with this team." They ignored everything else. Their offensive line isn't great. They lost their top receivers from last year. They haven't found replacements yet. Everyone completely overlooked that. Absolutely. In fact, I even put down a bet of Miami's under for wins this year. That's looking pretty good right now. Because I knew they were being overhyped.
Did you put it down for Updog so we get to split
it? Nope, you did no.
Maybe you can use it to pay for 1 month of our the pro version of our recording stuff.
I think I put like $2 on it, so I'm gonna win $5.
Oh well,
that doesn't buy us anything.
No,
Even as
but
low
yeah,
budget as this show is.
ACC doesn't seem as useless as they have in the past. So
Yeah.
maybe
And is Syracuse good?
I'm still gonna say no. You've asked me this like 8 times, and I just think they're getting lucky, to be honest. I think they're
It
better than what they were. Dino Babers isn't there anymore, right? He got canned.
no, he's still there.
Geez, that guy still has a job. I guess he's
Yeah.
bringing him back, but
I mean, he got him to 4-0 now, so I guess he's gonna get to keep it for another year.
for a little bit at least. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like he wasn't a terrible coach, but he like has struggled hardcore at Syracuse. So the fact that they're 4-0 is very impressive to me. But
He's mainly living
I
off
just
that 10-3 year in 2018.
pretty much that
Yeah.
and the beginning of this year is what's keeping him around.
And who's going to come out of this Coastal Division? We
I
were
don't
talking
know,
about
dude.
how bad
It's pretty
Miami
deep.
is. I mean, I guess Pitt.
Oh, that's tough. But Pitt didn't even look that great.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
No one's looked impressive. North Carolina can't stop a nosebleed. Virginia and Virginia Tech have new coaches.
Well, Virginia, they had high expectations and they just have not lived up to it.
Not at all. But Duke has improved.
Yeah. And North Carolina hasn't played terrible. It's just they faced a Notre Dame team, or no. Yeah, they just got beat by Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't make that up, did I?
No, you did
But
not.
it's been a long week already, and it's Tuesday. But yeah, like UNC doesn't look too bad, but man, Duke, other than getting destroyed by Kansas, and we'll get to them a little later.
Which isn't bad.
Yeah. They got a shot at this too. So interested to see what how ACC plays out.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the Coastal Division, we're going to be looking at another Coastal Wheel of Destiny situation. Oh, yeah. Georgia Tech already fired their coach. So I don't know what they're going to do there. So, yeah.
Well, you did ask me if they were going to go back to the triple option. I did not answer you through text. Perfect time.
Thanks,
that you bring
Matt.
that up.
Thanks.
You're welcome. I ignored you for a reason because I figured you'd bring it up. And I will surprise you with this. I don't think they're going triple option again.
Yeah. I feel like they wanted to get away with that, or get away from that for a reason.
Yeah.
So yeah. I don't know.
It's not the 1920s.
Yeah. They want to recruit Atlanta better. They need to find someone that can do that.
Yeah.
So moving on here to the Big 12. And I'll tell you what, I think we're going to have an exciting conference race here, the Big 12.
Yeah, dude. That is a big ref.
Oh yeah, the old beef ref. This I think he retired, but man, when this guy refed a Big 12 game, you knew you were in for a 5-hour game. This guy was going to call all the penalties, and obviously, they passed the ball around. Like, yeah,
his wife must hate him for throwing so much laundry on the ground.
Oh my! I am sad he retired though.
Yeah, but I mean, I love Kansas. I really hope they win the Big 12.
This team is just so much fun to watch. Like,
yeah, dude.
Lance
Leopold, he's got them going.
Yeah. I mean, the turnaround is just absolutely impressive. After being absolutely terrible for like more than a decade, it took him 2 years to all of a sudden just get this team going. Like, Jalen Daniels is an actual like star. Like, this guy is so good.
Yeah, and Texas and Oklahoma have severely disappointed. So it's literally Kansas to lose.
Texas and Oklahoma are already 0-1 in conference play. In fact, like we mentioned it earlier, like the conference standings almost look in reverse of what you're used to seeing.
Yeah.
Kansas at the top, Texas and Oklahoma at the bottom.
Even overall, like sporadically, Baylor has been pretty bad, and then they're up there.
Yeah, and I mean, overall, the most interesting thing is there's not a bad team in this conference. Like, it's going to be an absolute grind every single week. And
I think some of them have figured out how to play defense.
Yeah. No, they have. Like, it started with Oklahoma State. They started to figure out how to play defense. Oklahoma hired Brent Venables. It's going to take him a little bit to turn around, but they're going to eventually get more defensive minded. Texas has Gary Patterson as a special assistant to the defensive coordinator or something, but clearly he figured something out because they were stopping Alabama for most of the game. Texas Tech is a little better defensively. They actually stop people now. There's a lot more defense being played in this conference than usual.
Yeah, for the longest time, it was like if your quarterback didn't throw for 500 yards in a Big Ten game, then you are just a terrible football team.
Yeah, and you had even if you scored 50, you weren't sure if you were going to win or not.
Yeah, there's a lot of 60 to 50 games.
Cliff Kingsbury had Patrick Mahomes in this conference, and the number one offense in college football, and still couldn't do better than 7-6.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, but we'll get to that a different day.
Yeah.
Who's our next division or conference?
The next conference up here is the Big Ten. Obviously, our people of the Big Ten. Definitely a lot less offense played here. Iowa is doing Iowa things where, their coach literally lives to punt. I literally think he just enjoys punting. That's why they put more effort in recruiting a punter than the quarterback.
Dude, Iowa does not make sense.
They win with as little yardage as possible.
And somehow they get wins. I don't understand it.
Yeah, they're 3-1 this year, and they have they're near dead.
I'm pretty sure their defense has outscored their own offense.
I think they played Nevada, a team whose defense gave up 60 to Incarnate Word. And I think that's the only reason why Iowa's offense has outscored their defense so far this year.
Oh, true. It was a lot of field goals here for a while. And
their defense had outscored their offense in the other 3 games.
Yeah. So congratulations to Iowa's defense. You are the star of their team. Michigan, I just wanted to say about them. They've looked halfway decent, but they really haven't played anyone. So
yeah, they bailed on UCLA, so their non-conference schedule. They literally gathered the worst teams in possible in their non-conference schedule. We made fun of them earlier in the show. Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn. 3 of the worst teams in college football. Michigan somehow managed to assemble them together. Against Maryland, they kind of struggled a little bit, but we'll learn more about Michigan as the year goes on. It does feel like it's still them and Ohio State at the top of the Big Ten.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I still don't think I honestly think that if Ohio State doesn't win, then they just gave it away, because Michigan has not impressed me enough to be able to say, hey, because Ohio State has played beat Notre Dame, and Notre Dame did follow it up with another bad loss, but their defense played really well. They covered the spread at least. So but Ohio State, you can't compete with their receivers. So honestly, if they don't win, it's literally an atrocity to college football.
Yeah. And so far they have improved up front at least, so that should help them out a little bit. And then the Big Ten West, is anyone other than Minnesota going to come out of this? Minnesota should win this division at this point.
No, Wisconsin looks terrible.
Yeah. Wisconsin still isn't improved. Obviously, we talked about Iowa. Nebraska is just a complete mess. Maybe
Nebraska needs to go back to the Big 12. And then send Maryland and Rutgers east, and then get some Midwest team. Well, I guess they're getting USC and UCLA, but
yeah, enough of these misfits. Yeah, and then really the only other team that can upset the balance might be Penn State.
All right, we got 5 minutes to talk about SEC. Go.
Let's talk SEC football. Obviously we know what it is. Alabama and Georgia are the clear rulers of this conference. They probably both will make the playoff again this year. The thing is, though, just stopping Georgia seems like the most difficult thing. Georgia just looks so good.
Yeah. Stetson Bennett looks really good.
Yeah, he actually is elevating the offense now. He used to hold it back. He now is actually the star of the offense. But
he figured something out.
Brock Bowers is an absolute freaking beast. It's ridiculous how good that guy is.
Yeah. One thing I will say about the SEC is I am rooting for LSU to go winless because not only has Brian Kelly screwed over one team, he screwed over his second team of mine that I like. So, and then you go down to Louisiana for all your money and you start talking like a Louisianian.
My family.
Yeah, like bro, like, and then he's doing those music videos with recruits, and it's like, chill out. Like, no one thinks you're cool. You're purple more often than your shirt is.
Seriously.
Like, good lord, calm down.
But yeah, now other
Texas
teams
A&M looks good though.
Yeah, their offense is still very questionable. They've been good at pulling out wins without putting up yards, kind of almost Iowa like that way. But I mean, they found crazy ways to win. Beating Arkansas was a crazy game. Even at one point, Jimbo looked like an accountant on like January 1st with all his papers. But like, yeah, they look pretty good. They're still a contender. I mean, they've disappointed a little bit, but they seem to be finding ways to win. Ole Miss, we don't really know what they're like yet. But they can contend for New Year's Six Bowl. Kentucky has looked very good so far, but
I like Kentucky.
Other than playing Florida, they haven't been super tested at this point either.
No,
I mean,
but
Kentucky could win every game in their schedule outside of Georgia, but Tennessee might be back.
yeah, and I don't know what's going on with Auburn because they have not impressed me, but somehow they're 3-1. So, yeah, but we only got a couple minutes left. Any final thoughts?
Well, it'll be an interesting race the rest of the way, but it's been fun kind of talking about where things stand at the moment.
One quick thought or a couple quick thoughts on the NFL. Since we're just wrapping up the show. Give Lamar Jackson his money, or else
Yeah.
he's going somewhere else. What else did we miss since then? Oh, Miles Garrett got into a really bad car accident. There's a picture released of him bleeding, so that probably got some stitches. So he could possibly miss the game this weekend, and so hopefully he's good going forward and it's not too bad.
Yeah.
But
Just glad overall. It sounds like, after obviously he's got a little bit of recovery time here, but at least he'll be okay overall. Jacksonville Jaguars, now that they actually have a capable
good.
NFL coach, they look good.
Yeah. Trevor Lawrence without Urban Meyer is Peyton Manning. So
He's actually becoming what we expected him to be.
yeah, he's kind of finally coming into it. And then Bills injury riddled right now. I'd rather take a loss early in the year than the end of the year. So they're getting out of the way early, so they'll rebound. Miami looks really good. As you and I both predicted, Eagles are really, really good.
Eagles are very
I don't
good.
think anybody else was really talking about the Eagles.
Yeah, and we had them
Not
winning
many
the
people
division and
have.
everything.
Yeah, and I said they have a shot at the end of or like to get to the Super Bowl. So right now they're front runners. I love Mike McDaniel, he's the best. Bengals got their first win.
Dang, just
Small wrap
rattled them
up.
off here.
Dude, we gotta go quick because we're running out of time. But yeah, that is the show. I ran out of material, so and a breath. So follow us on every single social media. Just search at Updog Sports Talk. Find us, like us, subscribe to us, hit the notification button. We love you guys. We're out.
See you next week.